Now, I was so wrong about web design and designing websites as a business. Now, to give you a bit of context, I want to take you back to the year 2000. Now, in the year 2000, I was a certified network engineer and I was a Cisco qualified, and I could, pretty much set up networks and troubleshoot networks. So I really went into this because I really wanted to go in for the money. And at that time, I don't know if you're as old as me, it was the dot-com boom, and a lot of jobs around network engineering and computers and IT were really, really high paying. But to be honest, I didn't really like the job. So slowly, I started designing using Photoshop because my background is in art. So I'm a very creative person, or at least that's what I'm qualified for. I even have a graphic design background. And while I was at school, I also used to do art and I was very, very good at it. So I'm more of a creative person. So this coding stuff was not really for me. So fast forward a few years, I started learning how to put a website online using HTML. Now, it really took a few lines of code, but it was just the excitement that I had something online that really caught my attention. But I didn't really like the idea of just typing in things to come up with the actual design, because that was sort of like close to what I was doing in Cisco, because most of it was pretty much learning your commands to troubleshoot networks and so on. So as time went on, I did it for a little bit and I just pushed it to the side. And then came Photoshop. So I started learning how to use Photoshop. In fact, if you go to my first video on this channel, it's a Photoshop tutorial. So I love Photoshop. I love design. So I started playing around with Photoshop. I did quite a few tutorials in Photoshop and so on. And then as time went on, I did my degree in graphic design and visual communication. And then I thought, you know what? I really want to make a business out of websites, because graphic design wasn't really as popular because quite a lot of people were quite good at it, or rather that is my excuse, because perhaps maybe if I marketed myself well, I could have done well in graphic design. But anyway, so this is when there were tools coming out now where you could design websites. So I started putting in my knowledge of Photoshop into the templates that were there at the time, and also some of these page builders like Headway. And I really started liking the idea of designing websites, but I wasn't really 100% there because I still had to do a bit of coding to make things look right. And then Divi came. So Divi at that time was a breakthrough, because it was very, very easy to just drag, drop, put your content in, and your website was up and running. So I said to myself, you know what? I need to create a design agency. And I did. Created a design agency, called it Creative Astro, and the journey began. So as I was designing these websites, it was fun because I could design pretty much any website I liked, or pretty much very close to what I wanted. But the challenge was, all these websites were standalone websites. Like, each of them had its own code. I had no standard. So it became so dreadful going back to a site where I knew I had to go in and customize the height here, the size here. And, there was no standardization as I was doing these websites. So as the numbers of these websites grew, I just felt a lot of anxiety just going back to going through a website just to fix it. Or sometimes I've forgotten how or where the customizations were, and it just became too much for me. So I threw in the towel and I just got so overwhelmed. I just had to shut down the business. And then I just started creating tutorials on how to use Divi. So as Divi was getting better and better, I was doing a lot of tutorials, and then I got employed by Elegant Themes, working in their content team and so on. So now, as time goes on, I'm starting to look at this whole web design thing, and I really want to take my skills to the next level, because I really want to go back to creating an agency. But as I'm looking at the agency model, I know for a fact that time is money. And you also have to build websites that are very easy to maintain, to scale, and so on. One day I came across a video by Kevin Gary, and he said something that really triggered me. Well, he said something along the lines of, Divi is not a real page builder, right? And people that use Divi are not real designers. So at the time, I thought to myself, what the hell is this guy saying? Is there truth to this? But he was so confident in what he was saying. And at that time, he was talking about Bricks Builder. Now, I bought Bricks Builder many years ago, a lifetime license, but it was just sitting there. I didn't do anything with it. So as I'm listening to what he was saying, it was actually quite intriguing because I had to listen to the whole video. Usually my attention span is not very good. So I listened to the whole 30 minutes of that video and it got me really thinking. And the question I was asking myself was, did Creative Astro fail because I didn't have a blueprint or a system that allowed me to build scalable websites or websites that are easy to maintain and websites that are very consistent? And it turns out that that's the truth, but I didn't really want to believe it. I didn't want to believe it. So anyway, I started looking at Divi now after this video, and I'm looking at Divi and I'm like, okay, looks like we have a problem here. But I didn't really see the problem. I was like, yeah, CSS variables, who cares about that? We have presets, right? And then when it comes to classes, I was like, yeah, who cares? I can just go in and just put my values in there. It's not really a big problem. Learning CSS to me was like, nah. We're going back to that coding stuff. And as you know, like I mentioned, I gave you context. I come from a design background. So the idea of just learning how to code or that didn't sit very well with me. So I didn't want to learn CSS. And as I started designing websites using Divi, I'm starting to see all the flaws now. If I wanted to do something that can be used across many sites, I'm finding that I'm back to how things were when I was using Divi initially, when I had my design agency, where I'm doing things manually on each site. So just to give you an example, I have Divi University running on Divi. I also have SiteKrafter running on Divi. So I'll have to come here, do a lot of customizations, but these customizations are not necessarily the same on this other site. So there's a lot of repetition, right? And if I wanted someone to go in and take a look at both websites or to try and maintain them, it's a bit of a hassle. So this is why I started working on SiteKrafter. But this video is not about SiteKrafter. It's about what you need to do really to become a good designer and make money as a designer. So it turns out that you really have to learn CSS. You really have to learn HTML. You really have to look at things like classes, variables, CSS tokens, classes, and all these things that relate to CSS. Why am I saying this? It's because this is where you can really code that is very easy to maintain. For example, if you're using variables, you only need to specify these variables once and use them across the whole website. If you wanted to make a change, you just go to that variable, change it, and it applies across the whole website. Now, this already is a new way of designing websites. It's a new system. It's a new way of looking at it. So what I did now, of course, I'm very excited. I load up Bricks. I go into Bricks Builder and oh my goodness, it was like learning design all over again from scratch, because for you to really work with Bricks Builder, you need to have these variables, the classes and so on, to really get the best out of it. So I got frustrated, obviously, because I'm not really someone who is into this coding thing. So I come back to Divi and I'm like, okay, I'm back to Divi. This is my comfort level. I know I can design pages using Divi presets and so on and so on. But it is not enough for me to really work with it, to maintain my websites, to have consistency, scalability, and so on, unless we have all the design elements. Now, right now, as we speak, I know Divi is working on it, so I'm not having a go at elegant themes. There's no grid, CSS grid. There's no flexbox. There's no variables. I know variables are coming. We also need a class design using classes, because a class-based system is way easier. It's much fun to design using that, because of course, if you're one of those people that purchased SiteKrafter, you know what I'm talking about. And when it comes to color, Divi does not even support HSL. And HSL is even much better if you're using classes and variables, to use. So as you can see, these things that I've just mentioned are key to designing these professional websites that are scalable, maintainable, and consistent. So the question now is, what is the way forward for me now that I've discovered that my whole idea about web design is wrong? Well, there's no way out of this. I've started learning CSS. I've started really going deep into the grid system, Flexbox, and pretty much all the building blocks of web design. Now, these things that I'm learning, especially around CSS, I am going to be sharing this in upcoming tutorials. And if you are a member of Divi University, definitely you may want to join Divi University because it is a platform for anyone. He's a Divi enthusiast who designs websites using Divi. I guess that's the place you want to go. It's absolutely free, so I would recommend that you go ahead and sign up for your free membership and join the community. So yes, I've started learning CSS, and boy oh boy, it's like everything is all new. But at the same time, surprisingly, it is very exciting. I guess maybe it's because of my shift in mindset in looking at what sort of websites or what websites need for me to design these type of websites which are scalable. Now, also what's pushing me is I really want to revive and build my design agency again and start designing websites for small businesses and do a bit of consulting and so on. But I cannot do it right now without learning pretty much all the ingredients that allow me to become a complete web designer. So coming back to Kevin Gary, I mean, in a way, I would say the video was an eye-opener, and it's actually great that I had that slap of reality. Otherwise, I would have been, pretty much comfortable with what I had in Divi, thinking that that's the best thing that I have. Well, I was really prepared to leave Divi and move on to something more powerful like Oxygen or Bricks Builder. But because there's a lot of development work going in, like for example, we know now Flexbox is coming, we know variables are coming, and they are really working very hard to make Divi 5 a complete design software. So that is why I'm still hanging on, and I can see that there are changes being made. I can see there's a lot of updates coming through. So it is quite positive. Now, does that mean that I'm stuck with Divi? I'll never ever again use any other page builder? Absolutely not, because it's always good to see other workflows, because as I'm learning CSS can be used pretty much on any page builder. Okay, so I'm trying out different things. If I like something there in, let's say, for example, Bricks Builder, I can bring that idea onto Divi and talk about it, and be vocal about it, because I really want Elegant Themes to incorporate these things so that it becomes a complete page builder. Now, of course, it may seem like I'm just being very difficult, or maybe I'm really pushing hard for these features to come through. It's because, Divi has come a very long way, and they have a very good team. But they also have to incorporate these things for Divi to grow. Otherwise, people are just going to move away and go to other page builders. Because from what I can see right now, without variables, classes, and Flexbox and grid, man, it is so difficult to build a scalable, maintainable, and consistent website. Anyway, guys, I thought I would share this with you because yeah, you need to know what's going on as someone who has a community now and has been doing a lot of tutorials around Divi for a very long time. Yeah, that's the thing. I have to learn CSS. So if you start seeing CSS tutorials, that's the reason why. But don't be like me. Don't hate CSS. You need to love it, because this is going to expand your knowledge in designing websites, and it's going to make you well-rounded. Anyway, I really want to know your thoughts. What are your thoughts on what I've just said or what I've discussed in this tutorial? Let me know in the comments box below. Anyway, guys, until next time, thanks for watching, and I'll see you again in the next one. Take care.